The music world is reeling tonight after the shocking release of D'Angelo's official autopsy report. And what his family just revealed has left fans speechless. What was once believed to be a natural passing may, in fact, tell a very different story. Sources close to the family have confirmed that the results uncovered something no one saw coming, something that might finally explain the mysterious final days of the R&B legend. Was it truly health complications? Or is there more to D'Angelo's death than the public has been told? Stay tuned, because what his family just confirmed changes everything we thought we knew about his tragic end. The world of R&B has been shaken to its core. Just when fans thought they had come to terms with D'Angelo's heartbreaking loss, new revelations have turned grief into disbelief. The man once celebrated for his soulful voice, artistic genius, and mysterious presence left behind more than a musical legacy. He left behind questions. And now, with the release of his official autopsy report, some of those questions are being answered, but not in the way anyone expected. D'Angelo, whose real name was Michael Eugene Archer, was more than an artist. He was a movement. From the moment he burst onto the scene in the 1990s with Brown Sugar and later Voodoo, he redefined neo-soul and inspired an entire generation of musicians. But behind that smooth voice and smoldering persona, there was always a shadow, a man battling demons that fame only made louder. When news of his sudden passing broke, initial reports cited complications from an undisclosed illness. Fans were heartbroken yet confused. Friends described D'Angelo as private, spiritual, and deeply introspective. Still, even those closest to him admitted that in the months before his death, something about him had changed. His energy felt different. The light that once surrounded him seemed to fade. Those who knew him best quietly worried he was slipping into a dark place again, one that neither fame nor success could pull him from. His family's official statement brought a brief sense of closure. D'Angelo passed away peacefully, surrounded by love. But peace is not what followed. When the autopsy results were finally released, they exposed disturbing details, medical findings that contradicted what the public had been told. They revealed substances, conditions, and unanswered questions that painted a far more complicated picture of his final hours. In this video, we'll explore D'Angelo's final days, the hidden health struggles that led to his passing, and the shocking revelations uncovered in that official report. We'll also examine what his family had to say after the findings went public, and why some insiders believe the story is far from over. According to a source close to the family, one final note discovered alongside the autopsy report has changed everything. It suggests D'Angelo may have known something was wrong long before anyone else did. In the weeks leading up to his passing, those in his inner circle began to notice troubling changes, both physically and emotionally. The man who once commanded stages with effortless charisma had become increasingly reclusive. Friends described him as quiet, distant, and unusually reflective. He would disappear for days at a time, only to resurface with vague stories about feeling unwell or spiritually drained. Those close to him say his health had begun declining months before his death, though he kept it hidden from the public. Despite recurring symptoms, fatigue, shortness of breath, and persistent coughing, D'Angelo refused to cancel his studio sessions. He was reportedly working on new material, something deeply personal and, as one engineer described, almost prophetic. According to that engineer, D'Angelo said he wanted to create something that would outlive him. He claimed he could feel his time coming. Privately, family members urged him to seek medical attention. They knew he had battled health issues before, including substance-related struggles and stress-induced conditions. But this time felt different. There was a heaviness around him, a quiet awareness that something inside was failing. Now, with the release of his official autopsy, fans are left to piece together the truth. Did D'Angelo sense his own end approaching? Was his death truly the result of health complications, or something far more mysterious? One thing is certain. The world lost not just an artist, but a soul whose music and mystery continue to echo long after his final note. D'Angelo's sister later revealed that he had been complaining of severe chest pain and labored breathing just days before his passing, symptoms that should have sent him to the hospital. Instead, he stayed home, telling his family he didn't want to worry anyone. by the time paramedics were finally called to his Virginia home, it was already too late. Reports indicate that D'Angelo suffered a respiratory collapse, and despite repeated attempts, paramedics were unable to revive him. First, the official word was that he had succumbed to pneumonia and related complications. But almost immediately, fans and those close to him began questioning that explanation. How could a man who had reportedly been in recovery and focusing on his health suddenly deteriorate so quickly? Even more unsettling was the silence that followed. No public statements from his longtime collaborators, no detailed medical reports, just a brief announcement and an overwhelming sense that the full truth had not been revealed. Behind the scenes, his family was grappling with more than grief. Sources close to them said there were disagreements about how much of D'Angelo's medical history should be shared publicly. He had always been a private, even secretive man. He never wanted headlines about his pain or speculation about his personal struggles. But the autopsy they received told a story too shocking to stay buried forever. When the official autopsy report was finally released, it revealed medical evidence that no one expected, a discovery that changed how everyone viewed D'Angelo's final hours. The findings were both heartbreaking and alarming. According to multiple insiders who reviewed portions of the document, D'Angelo's cause of death wasn't as simple as initially reported. While pneumonia was listed, it was only a contributing factor, not the primary cause. The report detailed a series of underlying conditions that painted a much darker picture of the singer's final days. Medical examiners found signs of chronic cardiovascular inflammation and early-stage organ strain, consistent with long-term respiratory distress. In simple terms, D'Angelo's body had been fighting multiple battles, and not all of them were new. What stood out most was the discovery of traces of prescription medication and natural sedatives in his system, medications commonly used to manage anxiety, insomnia, and chronic pain. None of the dosages were excessive, but the combination could have weakened his body's ability to recover from infection. The most shocking detail came from the toxicology section. While early rumors of a drug relapse circulated online, the autopsy made one thing clear: D'Angelo had not overdosed. Instead, the report showed signs of a man whose system had been under immense strain for months. Chronic respiratory illness, coupled with exhaustion, had left his lungs vulnerable. When pneumonia struck, his weakened body could no longer fight back. A family spokesperson later released a statement confirming what many had feared. The autopsy results show that D'Angelo's passing was the result of multiple medical complications. He was battling more than anyone knew, but he faced it with strength and peace. That word, peace, carried a deep and powerful meaning. Those closest to him said D'Angelo had been on a profound spiritual journey during his final year. He spoke often about forgiveness, letting go of past mistakes, and finding stillness after decades of chaos. His journals, later recovered by family, reportedly contained passages reflecting on mortality, purpose, and redemption, like messages from a man preparing for closure. But the autopsy also revealed something his family had tried to keep private. D'Angelo's lungs showed scarring consistent with long-term damage, possibly caused by years of stress, smoking, or untreated respiratory issues. This silent condition, doctors believe, made the pneumonia fatal. He had been sick far longer than anyone realized. A family friend shared quietly, "He just didn't tell people how bad it was." And that was D'Angelo, brilliant, complex, and private to the very end. Even as his body gave out, he shielded those he loved from his pain. His passing left behind not only unanswered questions, but also a haunting reminder of a soul who gave the world everything, except the truth of how much he was suffering. He carried everything alone. Still, some fans weren't satisfied. If D'Angelo had been so ill, why had there been no outward sign? Why did those around him insist he seemed fine just days before? The answer, it turns out, might lie in what the family discovered among his personal belongings, something far more revealing than any medical report. Alongside his medical papers, the family found a handwritten note, a message that hinted at a deeper struggle and, perhaps, a quiet acceptance that his time was near. According to those who have seen it, the note wasn't just a goodbye, it was D'Angelo's final message to the world. And what he wrote may forever change how fans remember him. After reviewing the autopsy report, D'Angelo's family came across something that instantly shifted the mood from confusion to heartbreak: a letter tucked inside one of his personal journals. Written in his familiar cursive and dated just days before his passing, the note was described by one family member as the most honest thing he ever wrote. It wasn't dramatic or cryptic. It wasn't even a traditional farewell. Instead, it was quietly reflective, the kind of message only someone who had made peace with life could write. According to a close friend who read it, D'Angelo began by acknowledging the pain he had caused others in the past, writing, "I've made mistakes. I've been lost and found again. But no matter how far I drifted, I always came back to love. That's the part of me I hope people remember." He went on to speak about faith, a subject he had explored deeply in his final years. The letter revealed a man who believed that his path, even the painful parts, was guided by something greater than himself. Whatever he faced, he believed it had purpose. He wrote about forgiveness, about wanting his fans to know he wasn't afraid, and about how music had saved him more than once. One line in particular struck his family with overwhelming emotion: "If my voice ever goes silent, remember, the music was my prayer." Those words brought his sister and closest friends to tears. In that moment, they finally understood what D'Angelo had been trying to express in his last few interviews: that he was tired, not just physically, but spiritually. He had spent years fighting invisible battles, the pressures of fame, depression, and the constant struggle to balance genius with pain. The letter also spoke of his deep love for his son and family, emphasizing how much they grounded him amid the chaos. He wrote that he wanted them to find peace in the truth, even if the truth hurt. His mother reportedly kept the note private for several weeks before confirming its existence. When she finally spoke, she said softly, "Only he knew his time was coming. He faced it with grace." When the family later shared excerpts with close friends, the reactions were overwhelming. Fellow artists like Erykah Badu, Questlove, and Maxwell posted tributes hinting that they, too, had sensed his struggle. Questlove wrote, "He carried pain like it was melody, deep, beautiful, and heavy." For fans, the letter offered closure. But it also opened a painful question. Had D'Angelo been quietly preparing for the end? Was this note an expression of acceptance, or a man's final cry for peace? The answers, perhaps, lie in his final studio recordings. In the weeks following his death, D'Angelo's family began carefully going through his private recording studio, a small, dimly lit space filled with analog equipment, scribbled notebooks, and hundreds of hours of unreleased material. What they found there stunned them. Among the reels of unfinished songs were fragments of what appeared to be his final project, one that D'Angelo himself had titled "Return to Love." Family members and longtime collaborators who listened to those last sessions said they could hear the pain, reflection, and acceptance in his voice. The tracks were raw and stripped down, nothing like the layered productions of Voodoo or Black Messiah. One sound engineer recalled a moment that still gives him chills. D'Angelo could be heard whispering between takes, "If this is the last one, let it mean something." That same phrase later appeared in his handwritten notes, alongside lyrics about breathing against the wind and laying burdens down. These weren't just songs, they were spiritual confessions. Some of the lyrics, when read today, seem almost prophetic. He wrote about feeling closer to home, about battles only the soul can fight, and about finding peace after chaos. His family later confirmed that these recordings were made during the final months of his life, though none of them realized just how sick he truly was. His mother remembered how he would spend hours alone in the studio, refusing to take breaks. He'd come home exhausted, she said, but you could tell those songs were keeping him alive. Music was how he prayed. It's now believed that Return to Love was meant to be his final message, a body of work that bridged his pain and his peace. According to insiders, more than 20 unreleased recordings exist, including emotional piano pieces and spoken-word reflections. Whether these songs will ever be released remains uncertain. The family is reportedly divided on whether D'Angelo would have wanted the world to hear them in their unfinished state. But one thing is clear: these songs, together with the autopsy revelations and his final letter, complete the portrait of a man who had quietly prepared for his exit, not through despair, but through transformation. In a private statement, his family said, "We now understand that D'Angelo's final work was not about death. It was about healing. The autopsy showed how his body failed, but his music showed how his soul survived." That single sentence resonated deeply with fans around the world. Across social media, tributes poured in, clips of his most emotional performances, heartfelt posts from fans who said his music had helped them survive depression, heartbreak, or loss. Hashtags like #ReturnToLove and #LongLiveD'Angelo began trending globally. Even those who had never met him felt the weight of his absence. Yet through the sadness, a new sense of understanding emerged. His family made one thing clear: they would honor him not through mystery or speculation, but through truth and legacy. They wanted the world to remember D'Angelo not as a man consumed by pain, but as an artist who transformed that pain into timeless art. And as we reflect on his journey, from the young prodigy who redefined neo-soul to the quiet visionary who sought redemption through his music, his family's words remind us of something profound. Even in death, D'Angelo's story is not one of loss. It is a story of redemption, healing, and everlasting love.